3 seconds. That's all it takes to realise Austria is a paradox. This is a country where Mozart composed beauty. Freud dissected the human mind, and Schrödinger shattered reality itself. Yet from the same land was born Adolf Hitler, the man whose ideology and war would plunge Europe into its darkest chapter. Beyond this contradiction lies breathtaking beauty. Alpine peaks cut into the sky. Emerald lakes mirror perfect villages. Imperial cities glow with art, order, and precision. Austria is where harmony and horror coexist, where beauty hides uncomfortable truths, and where ideas powerful enough to reshape the world were forged. Stay with me, and by the end of this video, you will never see Austria the same way again. Hallstatt had nowhere to expand. A steep mountain rose behind it, and a deep lake blocked the way forward. Yet people chose to live here, generation after generation, for thousands of years. They stayed because this land held salt, one of the most valuable resources in prehistoric Europe. Long before modern nations existed, salt from Hallstatt meant food could be preserved and life could continue. Over time, this small village became so important that historians named an entire Iron Age culture after it. From around 800 to 450 BC, the Hallstatt culture shaped early European life far beyond these mountains. Homes were built tightly along the lake, wooden walls pressed against rock, using every bit of space nature allowed. Located between Salzburg and Graz, Hallstatt quietly endured while the world around it changed. Today, it stands as one of Europe's oldest settlements and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Now, before we move on, here's a fun question. Which country borders Austria? Comment your answer. Few people know that the water of Grüner comes entirely from melting snow, stays at just 6 to 7 degrees Celsius, and is so clear that visibility can reach over 40 metres. That extreme clarity is what gives the lake its deep emerald green colour, earning it the name Green Lake. During winter, the lake is only 1 to 2 metres deep, and the land around it functions as a normal public park. When spring arrives, snow from the surrounding Hochschwab Mountains melts and flows directly into the basin. By mid-May to June, the lake reaches its deepest point at around 12 metres, turning the park into a silent underwater landscape. Starting in July, the snowmelt fades, the water level drops, and the same park reappears on dry land once again. If you're watching this, please click the subscribe button in the corner of the screen. It's completely free, but it means a lot to us. Less than 100 years ago, experts laughed at the idea of building a road here. Austria was poor, broken after war, and barely had cars. And yet they carved one of the world's highest roads straight through glaciers. At the time, the country had lost most of its land. Its money was collapsing, and more than 1 in 4 people had no job. There were fewer than 200,000 cars in the entire region, and almost no long mountain roads at all. Even a narrow gravel path was considered too expensive, too dangerous, and completely unrealistic. But when the global economic crisis struck in 1929, Austria made a desperate choice. Instead of retreating, it decided to build upward, straight into the Alps. Thousands of workers climbed into the mountains with basic tools, facing snow, rock, and extreme weather every day. In 1930, the first explosions echoed through the valleys. 4 years later, a car crossed the Alps here for the first time. What emerged was a 48-kilometre road winding deep into the high Tauern Mountains, becoming a symbol of survival, determination, and quiet courage. Below 65 feet, Lake Toplitzsee has no oxygen. No fish, no plants, no life as we know it. Below about 65 feet, the water becomes salty, creating a heavy layer where oxygen cannot mix, trapping everything above it. Only bacteria and worms that do not need oxygen can survive below that depth. During World War II, the Nazis used the shore of this lake as a secret naval testing site for underwater explosives. Between 1943 and 1944, they detonated charges weighing up to 4,000 kilograms at different depths to study their effects. Near the end of the war, boxes filled with counterfeit British pound notes were thrown into the lake. The goal was to damage Britain's economy by releasing fake money into circulation. In 1959, divers recovered hundreds of millions of pounds from the lake, proving the story was real. But a floating layer of sunken logs makes deeper diving extremely dangerous, leaving parts of the lake unexplored to this day. More than 10,000 years ago, giant ice monsters swept through Upper Austria, crushing solid rock and carving out a surreal mountain basin. This isn't a fantasy movie set. This is Gosau, a system of 3 extraordinary lakes, quietly connected by hidden channels running through the heart of the limestone mountains. The lakes sit beneath the Dachstein Mountains, where glaciers shape the land and still feed the water today. There are 3 of them: Vorderer Gosau, the most accessible and famous, Gosau Lakes, the shallow middle lake, and Hinterer Gosau, reached only on foot. Together they stretch for more than 5 kilometres, linked by channels formed as the ice slowly melted away. Few visitors realised the water here was raised by 12 metres, carefully dammed to store water and create hydroelectric power. Standing before the dark peaks and mirror-like surface, the explorer Alexander von Humboldt once called this place the Eye of God. In summer, people swim, boat and hike along the shore, while climbers trace routes up the limestone walls. Protected within the UNESCO Hallstatt Dachstein Salzkammergut region. Gosau rewards those who stay a little longer with something rare today: quiet, scale and time. Most medieval castles were built on solid ground. Schloss Ort was built in the middle of a lake, and it has survived there for more than 1,000 years. It sits quietly on Lake Plansee, near the town of Gmunden, surrounded by calm water instead of high walls. The castle was first recorded in history as early as the year 909, long before modern Austria existed. Back then it was built as a water fortress, using the lake itself as its strongest defence. For centuries, noble families ruled from here, including the Ort family and later the powerful Habsburgs. In 1626, a massive fire nearly destroyed the castle and should have ended its story. But it was rebuilt, shaped into the form we see today. With a rare triangular courtyard and strong late Gothic style. Even when repairs became expensive and owners came and went, the castle never left its island. Today, a simple wooden bridge connects Schloss Ort to the shore, just as it has for generations. The castle still rises from the water, carrying more than 1,000 years of Austrian history in quiet strength. Local legends say Lake Achensee was once a wealthy village built in a wide mountain valley in Tyrol. The people had good land, clean water and steady food. But over time they became proud and unkind. One evening, a poor old man asked for food and a place to sleep, and the villagers laughed at him and chased him away. According to the legend, the old man climbed into the mountains and warned that the village would pay for its cruelty. That same night, heavy rain fell non-stop, and water rushed down from the surrounding slopes. By morning, the entire village was gone, buried under a lake more than 130 metres deep. Today, that lake is known as Achensee, the largest lake in the Austrian state of Tyrol. Its water is so clean that you can see up to 10 metres below the surface on a clear day. The lake was shaped by glaciers around 20,000 years ago and now lies between the Carvendale and Rofan mountains. On very calm days, locals still say the ruins of the old village. Even the church tower can be seen beneath the water. Plansee looks like a quiet alpine lake. But it was never meant to exist like this. It is the surviving fragment of an ancient Ice Age lake that once covered land all the way to the Ehrwald Basin. As the glaciers melted, the water slowly retreated, leaving Plansee behind as part of what was once a single meltwater reservoir. Today, the lake lies in Tyrol's Reuter district and covers about 2.87 square kilometres. It reaches a depth of 78 metres, making it the second largest lake in Tyrol after Achensee. Plansee is connected to nearby Heidewanger See by a 300-metre canal that was first built in the early 1900s. The lake's water quality is so high that people can see up to 15 metres underwater, which makes it popular for diving and fishing. For centuries, monasteries, princes, and even Emperor Maximilian V Firstborn fought over fishing rights here because the lake was rich with fish. In 1902, a power plant began using Plansee's water to generate electricity, turning an ancient natural lake into a modern energy source. During World War II, a sub-camp of the Dachau concentration camp was located near the lake, adding a dark chapter to its history. Just 95 kilometres from Innsbruck and 80 from Salzburg, there's a town sitting 800 metres above sea level. That became one of the world's most famous winter destinations. Small in size, enormous in legacy, Kitzbühel. The first settlers were Illyrian miners, who extracted copper from the surrounding hills between 1100 and 800 BC. Later, Romans absorbed the region into their Alpine province, followed by Bavarian settlers who cleared forests and built permanent communities. In 1271, Kitzbühel was officially granted town rights and protected by stone walls that shaped its historic centre. Unlike many European towns, Kitzbühel avoided major destruction during centuries of war and conflict. By the late 19th century, the arrival of the railway connected Kitzbühel to Salzburg and Innsbruck, transforming it into a centre for tourism and sport. In 1894, the town hosted its first ski race, beginning a legacy that would later make the Hahnenkamm races famous around the world. Have you been here already, or is it still on your travel list? Comment 1 if you've been, or 2 if you want to go someday. Before it became a palace, the land beneath Schönbrunn was a floodplain of the Wien River. In 1569, Emperor Maximilian II bought this land and began turning it into a private estate for the Habsburg court. By the early 1600s, Eleonora Gonzaga, the widow of Ferdinand II, added a palace to the existing mansion and started developing the gardens. In the 1740s, Empress Maria Theresa remodeled the estate into the Baroque palace we see today, expanding it to 1,341 rooms. She also designed the gardens, fountains, and terraces to reflect her vision of imperial power and elegance. Later, Franz I updated the exterior in a neoclassical style, giving Schönbrunn its iconic look that has lasted centuries. During World War II, the palace survived bombings and later became a museum, preserving the history of the Habsburg dynasty for visitors today. Long before Tyrol became the postcard image of Austria, it was one of Europe's most important crossings. The region is dominated by high mountain ranges, but deep valleys and Alpine passes created rare natural corridors through the Alps. For over 2,000 years, people moved through these valleys using rivers and mountain paths to travel between northern and southern Europe. Because of this location, Tyrol grew into a strategic transit region rather than a quiet mountain retreat. Whoever controlled Tyrol controlled one of the few reliable ways through the Alps. In the Middle Ages, Tyrol emerged as the County of Tyrol within the Holy Roman Empire, largely because of its strategic location. Control of Tyrol meant control of one of the main north-south routes in Europe. This role as a transit region shaped Tyrol's political history and remains a defining part of its identity today. We gather info from many places, so if we missed anything or you have something to add, let us know in the comments. Over 700 years ago, these stones weren't stacked to create the picturesque view you see today. They were built to guard the white gold, the salt road connecting Austria and Germany, where every square metre of land was worth a fortune. The original Burg Ehrenberg was constructed at the end of the 13th century by a ruler of Tyrol. Today, the ruins and the High Line 179 bridge still show exactly where the castle controlled the road and how it dominated the valley. Schafberg is a dramatic mountain in the Austrian Alps that rises to about 1,783 metres above sea level in the Salzkammergut region. From its summit, visitors can see a breathtaking 360-degree panorama of the lake-studded landscape, and even distant alpine peaks on clear days. The mountain's steep slopes and narrow ridge make reaching the top a remarkable achievement, whether by train or on foot. At the summit stands the historic Hotel Schafberg Spitz, one of Austria's oldest mountain hotels, welcoming visitors since the 19th century. On a clear morning, standing at Schafberg Summit feels like standing on top of Austria's heart, where water, stone, and sky stretch farther than the eye can take in. When the famous Sissi films were made, filmmakers searched for a place pure enough to represent a royal childhood. They chose Lake Fuschlsee. Its colours, its silence, and its mountains told a story words could not. Lake Fuschlsee is located in the Salzkammergut region of Austria, near the city of Salzburg, and sits at an altitude of about 665 metres. The lake is just over 4 kilometres long, with a shoreline of around 9 kilometres, surrounded by forested mountains that block noise and wind. Its water is among the cleanest in Austria, which is why all motorboats are banned to protect plants and wildlife. In summer, the water temperature can reach around 24 degrees Celsius, making it one of the warmest alpine lakes in the country. Sunlight and winds slowly change the lake's colour, shifting from crystal clear to turquoise, emerald green, or deep blue. Graz is the capital city of Styria and the second largest city in Austria, located about 200 kilometres south of Vienna. The city first appeared in written records in the 12th century as a fortified settlement built to protect the region. During the Middle Ages, Graz grew into an important centre for trade and government, and later became a residence of the Habsburg rulers. Because of this long history, the old town is filled with Renaissance and Baroque buildings that are still standing today. In the 19th and 20th centuries, Graz developed into a modern city with factories, universities, and strong educational life. Graz's historic centre and Ehrenberg Palace are protected by UNESCO for their cultural and architectural value. The city is also known as a UNESCO City of Design, showing how Graz connects its long history with modern creativity. One of Austria's greatest painters kept coming back to this lake. Gustav Klimt found something here he couldn't recreate anywhere else. Colours that only Lake Attersee could give. Long before Klimt arrived with his brushes, people were already living here in the Stone Age. Their wooden homes stood above the water on stilts, forming villages that still rest beneath the lake today. Archaeologists uncovered these prehistoric dwellings in 1870, revealing a shoreline shaped by human life for thousands of years. The name Attersee comes from an ancient word meaning simply water, a name older than modern countries. Roman roads once passed along these shores, showing that even empires were drawn to this lake. Steamboats laid across the water, carrying mail, goods, and everyday life between small villages. Artists, writers, and composers followed, searching for calm and inspiration. Even during World War II, soldiers came here not to fight, but to surrender and survive. Through every century, Lake Attersee remained calm, reflecting history without ever needing to explain itself. Beneath the icy peaks of the Alps, the Ziller Valley has existed for thousands of years, shaped by ice, water, and human survival. Long before Austria existed, Stone Age hunters crossed these mountains, leaving behind tools and traces near high mountain passes. Later, during the Bronze and early Iron Ages, the Illyrians settled here. Drawn by fertile land, forests, and natural protection from the Alps. The valley follows the Ziller River, which flows north into the Inn Valley, creating the widest alpine valley south of Innsbruck. In the Middle Ages, control of the valley shifted between archbishops, local lords, and the counts of Tyrol. When Austria lost Tyrol to Bavaria in 1805, Zillertal remained Austrian. Yet its people still joined the Tyrolean rebellion against foreign rule. Through war, exile, and changing empires, the Ziller Valley never lost its people's connection to land, faith, and tradition. Krimml Waterfalls are located near the village of Krimml, inside Hohe Tauern National Park in the Salzburg region of Austria. With a total height of 380 metres, they are the tallest waterfalls in Austria and the highest in Europe. The waterfall drops in 3 clear stages, starting high in the Krimml Valley and falling step by step into the forest below. The water comes from glaciers in the Hohe Tauern Mountains, where snow and ice slowly melt each year. This meltwater flows into the Krimml River and moves down a steep valley. Over a very long time, the fast-moving water cut through soft rock and shaped the deep valley we see today. By the early 1800s, the waterfalls were already famous among mountain lovers and artists. In 1829, Archduke Johann visited the falls, and in 1842 the first stairs were built so people could safely get closer. What was once a hard and costly journey by horse carriage is now one of Austria's most impressive natural sights. Hainburg Castle stands high above the town of Hainburg, watching over the Danube River in eastern Austria. It was built around the year 1050 by Emperor Henry III to protect trade and travel along the river. In the mid-1200s, the castle was expanded to make it stronger and harder to attack. Later, in 1683, Ottoman forces captured the castle during their advance into the region. When a new residence was built nearby in 1742, the old castle was no longer needed. Slowly, the walls and towers began to fall into ruin. Today, visitors can walk freely through Hainburg Castle and enjoy wide views of the medieval town and the countryside below. Innsbruck shines as the capital of Tyrol, located along the River Inn and embraced by the towering Alps. The city began in the Middle Ages as a key crossing point, where travellers relied on a single bridge to pass safely through the mountains. Its name, Innsbruck, means bridge over the Inn, a reminder of how one simple crossing shaped the city's future. Over time, Emperor Maximilian I turned Innsbruck into a centre of power, filling it with landmark buildings like the Golden Roof. For centuries, the city became a hub of culture, politics, and religion in the Tyrol region. Narrow streets, medieval alleys, and Gothic houses weave through the city, blending history with the breathtaking mountain scenery. In winter, snow transforms Innsbruck into a playground for skiing, ice skating, and festive Christmas markets. In summer, warm days invite hiking, cycling, and colourful local festivals under bright sunshine. Through every season, Innsbruck combines nature, history, and vibrant city life into an unforgettable experience. Spitz is a small market town on the north bank of the Danube River in Austria. It is part of the Wachau Valley, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site famous for its vineyards. People have lived in Spitz since Celtic times, and the town was first mentioned in the year 830. Spitz has a picturesque old town centre with narrow streets and historic buildings. Visitors can hike through the vineyards and nearby forests to enjoy views of the Danube and the surrounding hills. The town is quieter than nearby tourist spots like Dürnstein, so it feels more relaxed and authentic. Over 2 million years ago, a volcano erupted where Riegersburg Castle now stands. Today, its solidified heart supports one of Austria's most legendary castles, guarding stories of power, witch hunts, and fearless women. The first fortress here was built in 1122 by a knight named Rudiger von Hohenberg atop the petrified volcanic hill. Over the centuries, the castle changed hands many times, each owner expanding and reinforcing its walls. In the 17th century, Baroness Katharina Elisabeth von Wexler, known as Lady Gala, transformed it into one of the strongest castles in Austria, adding 108 rooms, 5 gates, and 2 deep trenches. During her rule, the castle also became the centre of dark events, including the tragic death of her handmaiden Katharina Paldorf, accused of witchcraft in the Styrian witch hunts. The castle not only defended its people from armies and invaders, but it also stood as a symbol of the power of its women rulers in a male-dominated society. Today, Riegersburg Castle remains in the hands of the princely family of Liechtenstein, with museums that honour both its legendary women and the mysterious history of witchcraft. Krems is a city in Lower Austria located where the Krems and Danube rivers come together. People have lived here for thousands of years. And archaeologists found a child's grave over 27,000 years old, the oldest in Austria. In the 11th and 12th centuries, Krems, then called Krems, was almost as large and important as Vienna. During the 30 Years' War, Swedish troops captured the city in 1645, but it was taken back by imperial forces in 1646. The city is also the hometown of Martin Johann Schmidt, a famous painter of the Austrian Baroque era. Romans once settled here and grew vineyards, and later Kremstein became a key hub for shipping and trade, even more important than Vienna. Over the centuries, artists, craftsmen and educators helped Krems grow into a centre of culture, learning and commerce. Today, Krems and the nearby town of Stein are protected as UNESCO World Heritage Sites, keeping their history and old buildings alive for everyone to see. Ischgl. This small town in Tyrol sits on one of the largest ski areas in the Alps, with 238 kilometres of slopes stretching into Switzerland. The resort is linked to nearby Swiss Samnon, making it one of the biggest ski areas in Europe. Families, beginners and expert skiers all find trails suited to them, while luxury hotels and mountain restaurants offer comfort after a day on the slopes. Over 70% of visitors return year after year, some coming back for more than 30 years. Ischgl's slopes include both gentle runs for beginners and challenging areas that attract expert skiers and snowboarders. Every year, thousands of tourists come not just for skiing, but to enjoy the combination of snow, music and Alpine culture in this high mountain town. Founded in 1083, Göttweig Abbey was built by Bishop Altmann of Passau. By 1094, the abbey introduced the rule of St. Benedict to guide the monks in strict discipline. A monk named Hartmann from St. Blaise Abbey was brought in to restore the monastery and set up a library and monastic school. In the 15th and 16th centuries, the abbey went into decline and at one point had no abbot and no monks at all. In 1580, a fire destroyed most of the monastery, but it was rebuilt under a new abbot from Melk Abbey. Another fire in 1718 led to a grand reconstruction, including Austria's largest Baroque staircase with a fresco by Paul Troger. About 30 monks still live at Göttweig Abbey, maintaining its traditions and daily routines. Perched above the Wachau Valley, the abbey combines centuries of history, art and learning in a single remarkable place. Vienna is called the City of Music. But did you know it started as a Roman fort and grew into the heart of empires that shaped Europe? Over 2,000 years ago, the Romans built Vindobona here to protect their northern borders along the Danube. By 212 AD, Vindobona had become a municipium, giving the city official Roman rights. After the fall of the Roman Empire, Vienna was influenced by the Lombards and the Pannonian Avars. From the 8th century onward, the region was settled by the Bajuvari, shaping its early medieval identity. In 1155, Vienna became the seat of the Babenbergs, who ruled Austria for centuries. The city was officially granted city rights in 1221, beginning its long history as an urban centre. Later, the Habsburgs made Vienna the seat of the Holy Roman Empire, turning it into a European capital of power. Vienna's historic centre today still shows its Baroque palaces and gardens, reflecting centuries of imperial influence. The city is also famous for its music, as composers like Mozart, Beethoven and Strauss all lived and worked here. And if you think Vienna's story is impressive, stay with us. Because what came next reshaped Austria in ways few people ever talk about. Legend says that deep within the Hochosterwitz Mountain, the souls of fallen Celtic warriors are trapped in stone vases. They say if a woman bathes in the icy plunge of the second falls, she will bear a child with the strength of a giant. But the waterfall is not just a story from the past, it is real, alive, and breathtaking. The water pours from a hidden cave above called Schwarzbachvoll Höhle, gushing more than 1,000 litres every second. The falls tumble in two powerful drops, one 28 metres high and the other 45 metres, carving rocks that look almost unreal. Early in May, the forest around the waterfall is dark and quiet, making the place feel like it belongs to another world. The Celts believed this spot held magical power, and they held ceremonies here to honour the forces of nature. Some say sacrifices may have been made, but no one knows for sure. Legends also speak of a mystical white Alpine goat that wanders the cliffs, and anyone who harms it is said to face a tragic curse. Standing here, with the mist in the air and the roar of the water in your ears, you can feel why people have been drawn to this waterfall for thousands of years. This Austrian castle guarded important trade routes between north and south, protecting merchants and travellers in the Middle Ages. It was originally called Castrum Zloinuk before becoming Burg Schlaining, and has stood here since the beginning of the 12th century. The castle sits 378 metres above sea level, giving a commanding view of the surrounding town of Stadtschleining. For centuries, it was owned by Austrian-Hungarian nobles, passing through families who maintained their castle's defences and heritage. During World War I, the castle held Russian officers as prisoners, using its secure walls to guard them from escape. Between 1939 and 1945, it served as a prisoner of war and labour camp. And shortly after the war, it became a criminal prison for captured Nazis. In 1980, the state of Burgenland took ownership, transforming it from a private fortress into a public historical site. If a perfectly romantic landscape had to be invented, it would definitely look similar to Lake Wolfgangsee. nestled at an elevation of 538 metres within the breathtaking Salzkammergut region. This liquid emerald stretches over 10 kilometres in length and reaches a staggering depth of 114 metres. This vast expanse of 13.5 square kilometres is framed by the towering Schafberg Mountain, creating a dramatic natural cathedral that sits primarily within the province of Salzburg. The landscape is a living masterpiece, continuously shaped by the tributaries of Zinkenbach and Gunzenbach, while the Ischl Traun River carries its crystal waters toward the horizon. Long before it became a modern icon, the Austrian emperor himself sought refuge in these picturesque surroundings, travelling from the neighbouring imperial city of Bad Ischl. Its fame reached a fever pitch in the 1930s with the legendary White Horse Inn musical, transforming the local hotel into a world-renowned sanctuary for illustrious guests. Wolfgangsee is more than just a destination. It is a precious jewel glinting amidst the Alps. Traunkirchen is a picturesque village perched on a narrow peninsula on the western shore of Lake Plansee, in the heart of Austria's Salzkammergut region. Its roots stretch back over 1,000 years, shaped by monks who founded a monastery here around 1020, making it one of the oldest settled places in the area. The village is framed by the towering Dachstein Mountain, whose steep walls rise dramatically from the lake. A historic trail called the Via Historica winds through the village, telling stories of monks, pilgrims and locals across centuries. On summer days, the lakefront bath and sailing spots fill with visitors. Every year, colourful processions and festivals bring this tranquil town to life with tradition and joy. Traunkirchen is more than a scenic stop. It's a living tapestry of nature, history, art and culture that has inspired travellers for generations. Heiligenblut im Grossglockner is a tiny alpine village, perched high in the Hohe Tauern National Park at the foot of Austria's tallest mountain, the mighty Grossglockner. Its name means holy blood, taken from a legend about a knight who brought a relic said to contain Christ's blood through the mountains long ago. Heiligenblut was once a stop on old Alpine routes, used by traders and travellers crossing the mountains many centuries ago. In the early 1900s, the Grossglockner High Alpine Road was built to connect Heiligenblut with the rest of Austria, bringing visitors from both valleys for the first time. In summer, hikers and climbers use the village as a base to explore trails that lead to waterfalls, viewpoints, and the Pasteurs Glacier nearby. The first written mention of this valley in 830 AD called it Wahua, meaning something curved. Today, the Wachau still winds exactly like that, carrying castles, monasteries and villages along a river that has shaped human life for over 30,000 years. The Wachau Valley lies between the towns of Krems and Melk in Lower Austria. It is one of the oldest cultural landscapes in the country, shaped by both nature and people over thousands of years. The Danube carved a 36-kilometre-long curve through hard granite rock, creating the narrow valley seen today. About 2,000 years ago, this same river formed part of the northern border of the Roman Empire. In the Middle Ages, locals carved steep wine terraces into the rocky slopes, changing the land without destroying it. These stone terraces store heat from the sun, helping create the famous Wachau wine aromas. The wealth from wine paid for castles, villages, and great monasteries that still overlook the river today. Perched at a staggering altitude of over 7,500 feet, within the heart of Austria's Hohe Tauern National Park, Lake Weissee serves as a shimmering turquoise jewel, framed by the rugged ice-scarred peaks of the Central Alps. For millennia, the surrounding glaciers have acted as silent architects, grinding through the bedrock to create the dramatic U-shaped valleys and deep cirques that define the Stubach Valley today. The lake's ethereal milky blue hue is a telltale sign of its glacial heritage, coloured by glacial flour, fine rock particles suspended in the meltwater that reflect light with an almost supernatural glow. Beyond its beauty, Lake Weissee is a powerhouse of nature, integrated into a complex hydroelectric system that harnesses the relentless energy of falling meltwater to provide renewable energy to the region. Next up, let's head to a place that looks like it's straight out of a movie, the Dachstein Mountains. These peaks are so famous that locals even gave them a special English name just for travellers like us. Standing at nearly 10,000 feet tall, the highest peak, Hohe Dachstein, is actually the tallest point in two different parts of Austria. It's a very busy spot because it sits right on the border of three beautiful states, Styria, Upper Austria and Salzburg. What makes this giant truly special is that it's made of limestone, which gives it a unique look you won't see anywhere else. For those who love excitement, this is the perfect place to go hiking, skiing, or even snowboarding down the slopes. Imagine standing on a giant sun-soaked plateau high above the clouds, surrounded by the mighty peaks of the Austrian Alps. This is Ramsau am Dachstein, a breathtaking place sitting over 3,600 feet in the air where the views never end. Because this land is so wide and flat compared to the steep mountains, you'll find cosy towns spread out with plenty of room to play. In the summer, you can hike through bright green pastures, or come back in the winter to zip through 130 miles of snowy ski trails. People have loved this peaceful spot for over 900 years, and today it's still famous for its warm smiles and friendly hospitality. Whether you're looking for a mountain adventure or a quiet place to relax, Ramsau is a destination you'll never forget. Above the calm Danube River, on a cliff of exposed granite, stands a monument that refused to disappear. Founded in 1089, Melk Abbey was built when Leopold II of Austria gave his castle to Benedictine monks, placing their monastery 230 metres above the river below. For centuries, this abbey became one of Europe's most important centres of learning. The abbey you see today was rebuilt between 1702 and 1736 in Grand Baroque style. Unlike many monasteries, Melk Abbey survived closure under Emperor Joseph II, who dissolved dozens of religious institutions across Austria. It endured damage during invasions, Napoleon's wars, and even a major fire in 1974. Which led to a careful restoration using over 8 pounds of gold. Today, Melk Abbey remains active as both a monastery and a school, standing as the largest and most magnificent Baroque abbey in Europe, overlooking the Wachau Valley, a UNESCO World Heritage landscape. Salzburg is the fourth largest city in Austria, sitting right at the foot of the snowy Alps and next to the Solzach River. Its name literally means salt castle, because for centuries people mined white gold, or salt, in this region, bringing immense wealth and power to the city. Trading this salt and mining real gold in the mountains made Salzburg a very wealthy and powerful trade hub. Because of that wealth, the city was filled with grand Baroque churches and beautiful architecture during the 17th century. Today, the historic city centre is so well preserved that it is officially protected as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Since the city sits right on the border with Germany, it is a popular stop for anyone travelling through Eastern Europe. While you can see the main sites in a single day, staying overnight gives you more time to experience the local culture. If you stay longer, you can use the city as a base to explore nearby mountain spots like Berchtesgaden or Hallstatt. Don't go anywhere. The places ahead are nothing like what we've just seen. You can see this castle from nearly 30 kilometres away. Sitting alone on a dolomite rock, Hochosterwitz watches over Austria like a silent guardian. Rising 172 metres above the valley, it stands 664 metres above sea level, high enough to control everything below. People have lived on this rock since the Bronze Age, long before the idea of Austria even existed. The first written record appears in the year 860, when the land was known by a different name and ruled by distant kings. Over centuries, the castle passed through the hands of bishops, dukes and emperors, shaped by power struggles and war. Its greatest transformation came in the 16th century, when 14 fortified gates were added, each designed to slow, trap or confuse attackers. Local legend says no enemy ever made it past the fourth gate. During one famous siege, defenders threw an ox filled with grain over the wall, tricking enemies into believing the castle would never run out of food. The attackers withdrew, and the castle remained untouched. Today, visitors still walk the long stone path through those same 14 gates. Gosau is a charming little village in the Dachstein Mountains that looks just like a postcard come to life. It is a great spot for travellers who want to see amazing alpine scenery without the crowds of a big city. The highlight of the village is Lake Gosau, which acts like a giant mirror reflecting the tall peaks above. You'll find plenty of green mountain pastures and ancient woods that are perfect for any nature lover to explore. It's a bit cheaper here than in the big cities, but you should book your room early since budget spots are limited. The vibe is very peaceful, making it easy to make new friends while you're out hiking the trails. Because this village is a bit tucked away, you'll want to plan your transportation ahead of time to get around safely. Vorarlberg is Austria's westernmost state, small in size but rich in history, sitting quietly between the Alps, Lake Constance and the Rhine Valley. Its name means in front of the Aal mountain. Those slopes were once covered with mountain pine bushes called Aalen, which gave the region its name more than 800 years ago. Locals affectionately call Vorarlberg Ländler, or the small land, a name that reflects both its size and its strong local identity. Long before Austria existed, Celtic tribes lived here. with the Radi in the highlands and the Vindelizi in the lowlands near the water. The Romans arrived in 15 BC, turning the region into part of their province of Radia and building towns that still shape the landscape today. Over the centuries, Bavarians, Lombards, local counts, and finally the Habsburgs left their mark layer by layer on this small region. Today, Vorarlberg stands as a place where deep history meets gentle beauty, with alpine slopes, open valleys and lakeside towns that feel calm, grounded and quietly different from the rest of the country. Plansee lies in Austria's sunny Salzkammergut region, a land shaped by water and home to 76 different lakes. But this lake is special, because even though it looks calm and gentle, it's the deepest lake in all of Austria. The Romans once called it Lacus Felix, meaning the happy lake, a name that still feels right today. Plansee sits low in the land, yet it drops nearly 200 metres deep beneath its clear blue surface. Tall mountains like Traunstein rise straight from the water, making the lake feel powerful and almost unreal. In summer, people swim, sail, fish, and glide across the lake on quiet sightseeing boats. White swans float peacefully on the water, becoming a symbol of the nearby town of Gmunden. Small villages rest along the shore, where life slows down and nature leads the way. Plansee is not just a lake, but a peaceful pause in Austria's long and beautiful journey. Austria is a small country, but it holds many different worlds. From high alpine roads to quiet lake villages and old cities shaped by history. Mountains protect the land, rivers connect towns, and lakes provide water, work, and rest for people who have lived here for centuries. Nature is never far away here, and even modern roads and railways were designed to move with the land, not against it. Because of this balance, Austria feels steady, calm, and carefully built over time. Thank you for travelling through Austria with us, and we'll see you again on the next journey.